Today we discuss the idea of capital. Now, you may have learned in economics class that capital means money or wealth. What I want to argue to you today is that capital is really a mechanism to extract energy from you. Okay? And what's important to understand is that in a universe where consciousness is the universe, then what energy is ultimately is attention and focus. Okay? So it's not enough for you to work at something, you also have to concentrate on it in order for capital to extract energy from you. Okay? All right. So with this in mind, let's discuss an example, all right? Okay. So the most basic example is you have a landlord class, and they're trying to extract energy from the peasant class. Okay? Now, before, traditionally, we've understood energy as maybe grain. Okay? Grain. Capital. But the problem with this is you're actually not that extracting that much energy from the peasant because it's not that hard to grow grain. Also, grain can be stored. Okay? So, in other words, as a landlord, your priority is not necessarily just to extract rent from the peasant. Your priority is somehow to get the peasant to focus entirely on the task at hand. And to do that, over the centuries, landlords have figured out certain ways or certain mechanisms in order to extract the most value from the peasant class. Okay? So let's discuss the mechanisms. The first is that we've transitioned from slavery to freedom. Okay? If you really want to extract value, if you really want to extract energy and attention and focus, it's much better to give peasants the illusion of freedom rather than just enslave them. Okay? So give peasants the belief that they have control over their lives. Another way of saying freedom is equity, right? Equity. So think of a company where I might give you some equity and then you work a lot harder because you think you can make more money. Okay, so this is a first trick that we've learned over the centuries. The second trick is to make capital more abstract. Okay? So the abstraction of capital. So let's use an example. Okay, grain was initially capital. The problem with grain is that you only need so much. So as a peasant, you only want to work as much as necessary in order to grow grain to feed your family. And maybe a little bit more to save. But most of the time, you just want to enjoy your life. But then we transition to gold, right? And gold, yeah, people are more greedy. But the problem with gold is there's only a finite amount of it. All right? It's hard to locate. So only a minority would expend all their energy trying to locate gold. Okay? And now what we've done is we've transitioned to the idea of money. Okay? As I will show you, the great innovation of the past 100 years is to convince people that money is God. Money is both nothing and everything. And so you can spend your entire life dedicated to achieving money. Okay? So that's the second great innovation. And the third great technique that's changed economics is to understand that if you really want people to focus their energies, you need to create anxiety in them. Okay? Anxiety. And how do you create anxiety? Well, the best way is to create the idea of debt, right? So I'll lend you $1 million today, and you enjoy it, but then you have to spend the rest of the time paying it back. The problem with this, of course, is that there's interest, and so you can never really pay it back, which causes anxiety. And so the idea of debt, I can extract much more value from you than if you were not in debt. Okay? That's the first tool. Second is the idea of inequality and poverty, where a certain class of people are poor, and they'll always be poor. And that encourages the middle class to work even harder. All right? The third mechanism of anxiety is wealth destruction. What is wealth destruction? Simple. War or depression, right? When the economy collapses, when all your wealth vanishes. The idea here is, listen, if the peasants work really hard and they store up a lot of grain, they have a huge granary, they don't have to work anymore, right? So as a landlord, what do? Well, you go burn down the granary. All right? So war is not just a mechanism to expand capitalism, but it's also a way to make people more anxious because you destroyed their wealth and therefore they have to work a lot harder. Okay? So again, in economics class, you may taught that the point of capitalism is to accumulate more capital. No, guys. The point of capitalism is to focus the energies of the peasants. Okay? Because the attention, the focus, is what makes society much more energetic. And that's the end goal. All right? So if society is wealthy, that's actually a good thing because it makes people lazy and complacent. And so the way to resolve this issue is by constantly engaging in wars and by having the boom-bust cycle that you might learn in economics class, right? So in economics, you might learn that the boom-bust cycle is natural to capitalism. It is not natural to capitalism. It is artificial. The people in charge artificially destroy economies, to destroy wealth, to make the peasants work a lot harder. Okay? So are you guys following along? Okay? So that's the strategy that we've learned these past few centuries. And that's why in today's society, we are the wealthiest society ever in human history, and yet at the same time, we are the most miserable, we are the most anxious, and we are the most in debt, okay? Because the landlord class, the capitalists, the elite, what they figured out are three mechanisms in which to extract as much energy from us as possible. First is to give us the illusion that we have freedom in our lives, we have the freedom of choice, that we have equity in society. We can vote for our leaders. When in reality, it's all just an illusion. Okay? Second is to make money God, the end-all and be-all, both nothing and everything, the very focus of your life. And because money is so abstract, you can spend your entire life trying to achieve more and more of it, and yet at the same time, achieve nothing and nothing, okay? So think of like someone like Jack Ma, who has like more money than he can possibly spend, and what does he want? He wants more money, okay? And the third is to create anxiety in society so that people's entire existence is one of stress. And as a result, people are much more focused on work and wealth creation. Okay? And you do that by a constant process of wealth destruction. All right? So, but the problem, of course, is that when you push people too hard, when it becomes so obvious you're exploiting people, then people will eventually revolt against you. So the solution that we figured out is, what we can do is we can actually move, okay? The landlord class can actually move somewhere else. And so when the anxiety becomes overwhelming, what will happen is the peasants will destroy each other, and the landlord moves somewhere else to the capital, and they'll come back when the peasant class have completely exhausted themselves, and they're willing to rebuild society, okay? And this process is what rules the world today. It is what we call transnational capital. In other words, the wealthy people of the world, they have absolutely no loyalty to nation or to people or to place. They only have loyalty to their capital. And they're willing to move to wherever they can, wherever they have to, in order to keep their capital safe and to grow it. And that's why a lot of people today are moving to Dubai or Hong Kong or Singapore. They don't care. They may not be of that place, but they'll go wherever they need to in order to pay less taxes, in order to avoid the social conflict created by their policies, okay, in order to find better investment opportunities. And this system is what rules the world today. But then the question is, okay, in concrete terms, what really is transnational capital? What allows transnational capital to function, to be able to move from place to place? Because remember, when you move from place to place, there are a lot of costs involved. For example, you don't really know anyone there, and so how can you trust the people? Right? And the solution that we've developed over the centuries is the idea of secret societies. So what you will learn is that secret societies and transnational capital are essentially the same thing. Okay? And this is the force that rules the world today.